There's only 1 week until Easter, and in this video I'm going to share with you the 5 things that you need to do before Easter gets here. Coming up. Hey, Spencer here from leadingworshipwell.com, your daily dose of practical worship leading tips. If you want to find those tips, head over to Instagram or Facebook at Leading Worship Well, where I'm posting new worship leading tips every single day. But you're here on YouTube, so go ahead, hit the subscribe button down below, and let's get into it because Easter is coming. We're a week away, and in this video, like I said at the beginning, I want to share with you 5 things that you don't want to forget to do in this week leading up to Easter. Before we head into those 5 things, though, I want to give you the question of the day. So pause this video, head down to the comment section, and answer this question. What are your plans for this week? The week of Easter, what are you going to be doing? Is it going to be crazy, or have you been planning for it for a while and you're like, this is just a normal week, man, I got this? Whatever it is, scroll down to the comment section on your way down there, hit the thumbs up button, and leave a comment. Answer that question. What are you doing this week? Thanks so much for answering that question. I can't wait to see what other worship leaders are doing this week. But now let's get into it, because I don't know what your plan for this week is, but I want to give you just a few more things to do. And I know it sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, like, I know there's a million things that you could be doing this week because Easter's coming and it's one of the busiest seasons of the church year. But I want to make sure that you don't neglect these 5 things, because if you do just these 5 things, you're going to be ready to lead on Easter. So let's get into them. The first thing you need to do this week, make sure you do this, is to read the Easter story. I know, you probably know it. Like, the story didn't change. Jesus died and rose again. But this is the story that we get to celebrate with our church and lead people in the celebration and actually communicate on Easter morning and throughout this entire week. So we should be really familiar with it. And I just want you to read it and get lost in the wonder of it again. Try to read it with fresh eyes. In fact, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read the Easter story for you. The screen's going to blur. The words are going to pop up on the screen. I just want you to close your eyes and hear this story. This is from Matthew 28. Matthew 28, the resurrection account, says this. After the Sabbath, at dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and, going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. The angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here. He is risen, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples, he is risen from the dead and is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him. Now I have told you." So the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid yet filled with joy, and they ran to tell his disciples. Suddenly, Jesus met them. "Greetings," he said. They came to him, clasped his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." While the women were on their way, some of the guards went into the city and reported to the chief priests everything that had happened. When the chief priests had met with the elders and devised a plan, they gave the soldiers a large sum of money, telling them, "You are to say, his disciples came during the night and stole him away while we were asleep. If this report gets to the governor, we will satisfy him and keep you out of trouble." So the soldiers took the money and did as they were instructed, and this story has been widely circulated among the Jews to this very day. Then the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. Then Jesus came to them and said, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age." So that's the story that we get to celebrate this Easter. That's the story that we get to communicate. That's why we're doing what we're doing, because Jesus is alive. And if you've grown up in church, maybe you've grown calloused to that message. I hope not, but I know it happens. Like, we've heard the Easter story a million times. You know what your pastor is going to be preaching on this Sunday, but I just want to challenge you to see the wonder of it again. So thanks for listening to that. That's going to serve you well. Maybe read it a couple more times. Maybe go even back further into like all of the events leading up to Jesus's death and resurrection. And that's going to give you a clear picture of what we are celebrating when we celebrate with our church on Easter Sunday. Now that we know the story that we're celebrating, the Easter story, the second thing that you need to do in this week leading up to Easter is ask yourself the question, how am I going to engage people who only come to church on Christmas and Easter? You know, on Sunday, Easter Sunday, there are going to be people who don't come to your church regularly, and they're going to be there because it's Easter and they want to celebrate Easter. So you can do one of two things. You can choose to, number one, ignore them and be like, you know what, you never come to my church anyway, so I'm not going to do anything to incorporate you. Obviously, we don't want to lead like that, right? So you can ignore them, or you can choose to engage them and invite them into what's going on in your church. And how do you do that? Well, here are two quick examples. There's more than these, but two quick examples of things that you can do is, number one, pick out some familiar songs. Some songs that they might actually be able to sing along with. And these probably aren't the newest Elevation and Hillsong or Bethel worship songs. You can do some of those, but don't make that your entire service if you want to include these people, because we want to give these people the opportunity to sing along with us. So maybe throw in a song that's just for them. The rest of your church is going to love it too, because it'll be familiar to them as well. But incorporate these people who only come once or twice a year and maybe lead Amazing Grace. It's not the most exciting song in the world to lead, but everybody knows Amazing Grace, and it would make a great Easter song. Maybe do Nothing But the Blood. Maybe do like an old contemporary worship song like Mighty to Save, right? People might know those songs, so think through that. You can pick songs that people are familiar with. The other thing that you can do to engage people who only come once or twice a year to your church is you can explain things better. If people aren't used to coming to church, they probably don't know why you're doing what you're doing. So think about your speaking transitions. Be super clear on Easter Sunday, and maybe even teach a little bit on why we're worshiping, why we're doing what we're doing. And that's a great way to engage people, is to teach them and say, like, this is why we're doing what we're doing, and we would love for you to do it along with us. So number two, think about those people who only come once or twice a year to church. The third thing that you need to remember to do this week leading up to Easter is to thank your team. Don't forget to thank your team, because I know how it is. You think like, I've got a million responsibilities, and so you start to do your to-do list, and there's a million things to do, and you don't think about your team. But those responsibilities, yes, they're burdens for you. They're things for you to get done, but that leads into or drips into your worship team members as well. They probably have increased responsibility this week as well, whether that's extra services or new songs to learn or whatever. Like, they're putting in extra work too, and you should just be thanking your worship team on a regular basis. So sometime this week, send out a text that just says thank you, and remind your team that what they're doing matters. Like, celebrate with them that we get to share in leading our church in the greatest story ever told, that Jesus died and rose from the dead so that we could be connected with God and that we could be saved. That's an amazing story. If you point your team to that and thank them for the extra work that they put in this week, it's just going to lead them well and make them that much more excited to lead on Easter Sunday. The fourth thing to do before you lead worship this Easter Sunday is to worship through your set list. Once again, your to-do list is long, so the temptation might just be to be like, I know these songs that I'm leading on Easter. I know them pretty well, so I ran through them, and I know how to play them, and I know the words. But as worship leaders, we aren't just up there to play music. We want to take it a little bit deeper, right? So the way you do that, and I've talked about this before, is that you want to worship through your set list. You want to move beyond just musically preparing and saying, I've got the musical fundamentals down that I can play this song. You want to move into worshiping through your set list. So after you've learned these songs musically, sit down and play through your set list. Worship through it, just like you would on that Sunday morning. And just have a personal time of worship with God. And that's going to do two things. Number one, it's going to refresh you if you actually take it as a time of worship. How often do we just sit down and worship? I hope it's a regular routine for you, but on Easter, we might forget that piece. So don't forget that piece to just sit down and just have a personal time of worship with God with the songs that you're going to be leading on Easter Sunday. And then the second thing that it does is it helps you go on the journey before you lead people on the journey. So when we are leading worship, we are leading people on this journey, and we want to go to where we're going before we lead other people there. So worship through your set list. Don't just run through it to learn it musically, but actually take time to worship through it. Finally, number 5, and I saved the best and the most difficult to do for last. The 5th thing that you need to do, not want to do, but you need to do before you lead on Easter Sunday is find time to rest. Find time to take a day off. And you don't get a pass on Easter week just because things seem busy. It's not like, okay, well, I can just push through. No, you need some time to rest, because if you don't rest, you've got a million things to do this week, and you're going to stumble into Easter Sunday, and you're going to be like, man, I'm so exhausted because I had to do all of this stuff this week, and I was so overwhelmed, and now, yes, I get to actually lead worship on Sunday, but I'm just so tired. We don't want to lead like that, especially, any Sunday, but especially on Easter Sunday. We want to come in with confidence. We want to come in feeling refreshed and rejuvenated because we've had a little bit of time off. So we're still, a little bit over a week out as of this video coming out. So get your stuff done so that you can plan to take a day off. Start working on those things and write down on your calendar, okay, on Friday or whenever it is for you, I'm taking this day off because I know it's going to help me lead my church well on Easter Sunday. Write it down, make it a non-negotiable so that you get everything done that you need to get done before that day so that you can rest and relax on that day so that you can lead your church well when the Easter Sunday comes. Don't forget to rest. Maybe you're not sure what you need to get done for Easter. Well, I've got something free that I put together for you. It's called 7 Days to Leading Easter Worship Well. Now is the perfect time to download it because it's a 7-day devotional. So it's like a week long. It'll lead you right up to Easter, and it's going to walk you through the steps of preparing for Easter, and even through some of these things that we talked about today, like how to engage people who only come to church once a year. So if you're interested in working through that 7-day devotional, it's a practical devotional to help worship leaders just like you who are preparing for Easter get prepared for Easter. So click the link in the description below. Thanks so much for joining me today. My name's Spencer Cormany from leadingworshipwell.com. Until I see you in the next one, keep leading worship well.